working. People are learning. People are sharing. So I appreciate it when you guys do that. It makes me feel like I'm actually contributing to the world of art. We're doing a big boy, and we need lots of foam for this big boy. So let me back the camera up. Back it up, back it up. Hello, Gambit. And if you are new to this XPS foam, which is this stuff, this comes out of the machine or roller or whatever that forms it, always with a curve on one side. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's flat. And then right here, it starts to curve up just a little. So when you cut your base flat piece, you want to cut it off this side so you don't have a weird curl in your piece. 16 tall, so 15. I'm going to cut this at 15. So I'm going to mark it in 2 places, at least 2. So in case your foam, 90 degree on your foam is not cut at a perfect 90, you have 2 marks to guide your straight edge. These are crucial to get this cut as straight as possible. 1, 2, and trace. That's enough to where I can just move this now and just continue the cuts where my knife should stay level as long as my first 3 cuts stay level. Yep, and I have a fresh blade on there, and a T so I know this is top, because this is all going to get textured and painted over, and a B for the bottom, and here I'm going to write back, and I'm going to write top, and I'm going to write front, so I know which way I'm working if I work on the piece without the back, so I don't lose where I'm at. I'm going to line up this back where it's going to get mounted here. And we're not going to mount this yet, and I'm going to draw just a line with my Sharpie. So I know not to glue anything in this space, and I can work without the back piece attached now, and without fear of messing anything up. Okay, 1/2 inch. So this 1/2 inch, again, is actually 3/8 of an inch because I'm compensating for the 1/8 of an inch extra on my dimension, on my ruler here. All right, so let me give you guys an ultra super foam cutting close-up. And we're gonna go slow. And here is the exciting part. Boom, okay. So that should be a perfect 1/2 inch cut. And it's important when I slice these cuts off of the foam that I keep them stacked up in the correct order. Because even if I just was slightly off when I made my cut, and again, like if my cut is just a little bit off in one spot and I don't restack the cut slabs of foam, see there's my cut. If I was just a little bit off, like a little tiny bit off, and I go all the way, do it all the way across and cut them all out, but I flip one the wrong way, then it could mess up all the dimensions of my whole piece. So this is the outside of this piece. I'm going to flip it down, and I'm going to stack them up over here. So I'm going to cut it, flip it down, cut it, flip it down, and keep them stacked up. Because when we do all these cuts, we're going to take that whole stack and make other cuts with that whole stack to make our geometry, our consistent repeating geometry. Now we have this stack of pieces that are all cut. Now we need to line them all up again perfectly. And I probably will use a clamp. Just a clamp. I don't know if you know Clamps from Futurama. He's a robot who works for the Robot Mafia. Give him the clamps. That's what he always says.
Maybe you should give him the clamps, Clamps.
Gee, you think? You think that maybe I should use these clamps that I use every day at every opportunity? You're a freaking genius, you idiot!
I'm gonna clamp these together, and I gotta make sure these are nice and realigned because we need to have consistent, perpendicular, and parallel geometry. So these are nice little DeWalt clamps, and I'm just going to use these. And I'm going to I'll have to move this a few times as I do my cutting. But and you don't want to push hard because you don't want to dent your foam. But I'm just going to use this to hold these flat and together. Same thing here. I'm going to put one on the end, and I'll take these off as the pieces get cut off. I can remove these and reposition these and whatnot. So now that I have these all cut with their 1/2 inch dimension, I'm going to take this stack, turn it this way, and cut those off. Now we got to be careful so the stack does not collapse, because the actual heat of the foam, or heat of the cut, is keeping these pieces together right now. So don't want to wibble wobble them around too much, otherwise they'll fall to pieces, and I don't want that. Is that okay? I want these to stay together. So you see that now? Now if I take these pieces individually and I trim them off at different heights, we get our undulating foam. I'm going to set these aside, and yes, we're going to do the same process to this shorter one. So I'm going to put a backstop on this because we're going to start gluing pieces down, and I don't want to have them overlap my tolerance here. So I'm going to pin down this piece that I cut that's about 1 inch here and line it up to the back of my black Sharpie line. And yeah, just do that. So this is where we get to make some crazy decisions about how to glue things and what we want to do. I'm going to have this kind of going around and sweeping down and flowing. And so I'm going to kind of lay these out roughly how I want them. And then I'm going to individually, go in, trim them down to different heights and glue them in place. So this is where we get to be creative. Something that I'm going to keep in mind too is all these ones on this back wall, I might try to cut these all in 1/2 inch increments so that when I cut the ones for the back wall and flip them forward, they will slot in nicely with how they're going to intersect the ones that are in the front, if that makes sense. Like, you know, like if I have this on the bottom and this coming over the top like that eventually, if I cut it at 1/8 of an inch, the next one will drop down 1/8, but it won't line up with the grid. So if I cut them in 1/2 inch increments, then I drop this 1/2 inch, it'll line up with the grid on the wall. So it's very confusing and there's a lot to mentally keep track of, but it's gonna look cool when we're done. Okay, so I think this is a good layout to start with here, and then we can start cutting some random pieces and gluing them. And we got to start from the back and move either over or out so that everything stays lined up to the outer edges. Well, I guess we don't have to. We could start here and move this way, but it will keep everything lined up with the outer edges, which is very important. So I'm going to flip the piece around, and we're going to start over here. And I'll probably do some of these back pieces like full height, and then work our way out and down and undulate up and down as we see fit. Okay. So now I'm going to line my diorama back up here with my grid on my mat, because everything was cut to 1/2 inch and my grid is laid out in 1/2 inch. I'm going to put a weight on this so this won't budge when I draw lines into my piece here. Now I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line up my lines. We're a little farther than 9.5 inches because of the glue in between, which adds that. So I might actually, keeping that in mind because I forgot about that, measure from here to over here Yeah, so it should be 9.5 inches if I cut everything in half an inch, but because things are plus or minus a 32nd of an inch tolerance because of the width of this wire and the glue in between, it's pushed over farther now because the materials have layered upon themselves. So now I have to use this to get that dimension, which is actually 9 7/8. So if I'm going to take my knife because I want an accurate measurement. I'm going to cut 9 7/8 into my mat here. That is actually where it is. So if I do that, there's my straight shot to my outer line. Use my speed square here to help keep my ruler straight. So this is a trick. So the last thing I want to do is have my ruler kicked over like this and cut a line into my base and have it be off, because then it's kind of not ruined. I could fix it, but it would be a pain to try to fix. But if I use this, I'll make sure my line, wherever it is perpendicular to this front of the base, and now I can compensate for that. And or be weird, awkward right-handed and slice a line into the diorama. There we go. So now I have this cool looking grid pattern. And now I have references. So if I want to take like little cut off pieces and glue undulations over here, I have a reference where I know where to put them. So when I start putting them over here, I can kind of like get my ruler and line them up so that the fade and the transition portion will line up with the rest of the grid and not be random. Because if you have it random, it'll look like broken tiles, but I want it to look like a transitioned hologram or morph. So that's a good X-Men character, by the way. So this is where we are at. So this has been coated in flat black paint here, and this has got like 4 coats of black paint so that we can add our color. And we're actually going to use actual spray paint from a can on this. And on foam, if you're not familiar, once you've got 2 or 3 coats of acrylic on there, whether it's Mod Podge or paint, you can actually use spray paint safely. You need to have an even 2 or 3 even coats or 2 or 3 thin coats that are nice and solid across, so that when you actually spray your spray paint with the different things on it, or different aerosols in it, excuse me, they won't eat away at the foam. So you're safe once you've got 2 or 3 coats of any acrylic medium, whether it's a foam coat or Mod Podge or paint, all right? You can just dive in. We're gonna start with this color. This is Satin Lagoon. And like I said, I'm just gonna let the overspray hit over here because we're gonna paint over all this anyways. So I'm not really worried about it. Here we go. If you don't know spray painting technique, you generally want to start your nozzle off the piece you're working on and carry it and then lift up. You don't want to hold it down and just keep spraying. You'll get big gloppy things if you're not familiar with spray paint. But if you start off the piece and spray across and then let go, and then start again and spray across and let go, you'll get better results, and you'll be able to, you'll be able to control the paint better, or the dispersion of paint. Okay. Perfect. Might come back and do some redusting too if I need to of the other color. Looks pretty good. Let me see what it looks like in camera. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. That looks better in camera. That's funny. The previous one looked better in real life. Now this looks better in camera. See, when you do 2 or 3 colors like this and you gradiate them and you have your black underlayer, it really brings out all the detail. lighter as it goes away. That looks kind of nice. Darker than the lighter, sort of. Paint on that square right there. There it is in the bright light. Bright light city gonna flatter. The faster the cubes, the less shadow you'll have. Oops, autocorrect flatter. The flatter the cubes, the less shadow you'll have. Yeah. Jesse Torres says the die was coming to life. Thank you so much.